Yo, Calvin. Welcome
Yo, what's
back.
up? Hey,
Uh, Happy birthday to you.
thank you.
Congratulations on 1 year closer to death.
That's all
Um,
right.
Hopefully it, you know what I mean? I don't know. Hopefully it's a good one.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Had a good birthday, and as a gift, I was given a 3 month subscription to Game Pass. So now I can play all these crazy AAA games that you guys always talk about, and I just fake. And I think Starfield is coming out. Starfield is a game I would never, honestly, never have bought for a very long time, and
Yeah.
that's actually going to be on Game Pass. So I'm
Oh.
like, okay, I'll be on top of things for once.
When is that coming out? Is that going to come
Thursday.
out while you still have
Wait.
it?
Oh, yes. I think it comes out in like 5 days, actually.
It's coming out in five
Like,
days?
yeah, it is. It is. It is.
Oh, okay.
And then Payday 3. I love Payday. That's
Yeah.
coming out in like a month. So I'll still have the subscription and play those games.
I will play that with you if you have room as a team of four.
Awesome. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I would like to play
Yes.
that actually as well too. Payday 2
Yeah.
was a real slow burner. It's really interesting, honestly. Um, Really interesting. Like, look back if you look at that game by itself. It's like a game that shouldn't have worked and shouldn't, but had like a really great core audience that over time
Mm,
with new additions like grew and grew and grew
yeah.
it's perfect for like the YouTube crowds because it has two different things, right? One, it has that quick reset flow optimization where it's like every time we do a round like a roguelike, we try to make it a little bit better. Slip ups become funny. We can dive into a role playing team as well too when we're collaborating with
Mm,
other people, and everybody imbues their own little piece onto it. And then the last piece is that like clear guide, like the people who loved Door Bashers, if you've ever seen that game,
yeah. Yeah.
and things like that. It's like, here's how to do it absolutely perfectly, 5 stars, and blah blah blah. A little bit of the Armor Core, funny enough to see that coming back as well too, as like a
Yeah. Yeah.
demo. But like S ranks and stuff like that, like first, yeah, I mean those things sell. They do work in a lot of ways as well too to have repeat replayability.
Mm.
But Payday 2
That's,
had one of the craziest like Easter eggs and mystery backstories as well too that like
oh, what's that? I don't even know it.
oh my god, like the Illuminati was all in this.
Oh,
You go into an underground cave that has, like this whole like Templar symbol
holy crap.
based thing. You have to survive like some crazy amount of weight. Like it completely goes off of the rails of like we're just robbing banks, dude. We're robbing stuff and like all of a sudden it's like no, that's not at all what this ends up being. There's like a time machine, and like we're like,
Holy.
yeah, we're like bringing people back to like resurrecting people and bringing them back to life and crap. It's like it's nuts.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it just goes. It went real
Yeah.
deep, like real deep, and it's funny because again, it's another one of those like this meta thing is what's driving your attention a lot of the times within games, but also then pulling new users to it because they're like, oh, this is kind of like a fun, complete side quest. Um,
Yeah.
but I was,
I think it's really interesting you say like the game is it shouldn't have worked was kind of your first impression. I remember the first time I played Payday 1, just a demo.
mhm.
I was just blown away by the premise. I loved just the simple heist with your buddies. If you've seen the movie Heat or something like that, where it's just like guns blazing,
Heat, Ocean's
it was
11, Ocean's
yeah,
12,
yeah,
any
yeah.
of these movies.
I was totally bought into the player fantasy, like just the pitch. Like I didn't even really need to play the game, but then once I played the game, and the cops are all swarming you, and there's this giant guy in his giant SWAT suit. I really loved the player fantasy in those games. So
It's awesome. Yeah, I think Payday 1 was like light on mechanics, but that's the thing, is like, it's just like over time you just kind of like build it up, put a little
yeah,
light upgrade
very
system
light.
in there and
Yeah.
and just kind of let it go. Nice thing is like crossover as well too. There's a lot of, if you look at like industry crossover, life mods are huge for me. I love these things, and if you haven't heard anything about a life mod, go look them up on Arma 2 or just any of the RP servers, the roleplay servers for the GTA side of things, right? GTA has heists. Um, GTA Online, years and years ago added these things in, and they're super super fun. But in the
Have you
life,
played them?
yes, but in the
Are
life
they as
mods,
good as? I'm sorry. Are they as
no,
good as like
payday
Payday and
ones,
stuff? Yeah.
they're not as they're not as detailed. I think that's the thing
Ah,
is they're not
okay.
as detail orientated in the same sense. Like what you do is you have to like research which ways you want to get into a certain area, right? And then you kind of execute on that. And if you alert the cops, then all of a sudden it's like all hell breaks loose, shoot everybody, get into the place,
Okay.
steal all the money, get out within a certain amount of time, and just try to survive. So I think everything on terms of the escalation of the emotional escalation all kind of comes down to the same thing. In the life mods, they're kind of cool because you can rob the bank at any time. And then there's real cops. And then there becomes hostage situations and hostage negotiations with real people. And you have to kind of, like play off that side of things. So there's another gang of it as well too, like different levels to the same game. But
Hmm.
I do like it. We were talking about, like co-op games as well too, like
Yeah.
that. Last week we got on a call for like 5 minutes, and basically came to the conclusion of like I'm stressed and I have nothing else I have nothing to say, nothing of any interest to say. But we were looking at an article where there was like a bunch of ex-Riot employees that had broken off and are now not doing any competitive games; they're doing co-op games. And I think that's a really interesting thing because for me, a life trend has always been whenever I talk to my friends who kind of get a little bit burnt out with the industry or anything else like that, they instantly go to I want to make a couch co-op game. I just want to make a couch co-op game.
Yeah.
Um, and it's one of those things where it's like I feel like a lot of people feel like it's an underserved audience, it's an underserved genre, but I also feel like these games don't do well in the grand context of anything. Now, sure, like Overcooked and everything else like that has you know shown to stardom. Brawl Stars, no, is it Brawl Stars with the oh god,
No, no, no. I know
no,
what you're talking about.
Gang Beasts. Thank
Gang
you,
Beast.
Gang Beasts, and a few other ones as well too have obviously risen to prominence here within these spaces. COVID obviously had a huge hit though on all of this, and it's like okay, well, when will we get back to kind of developing those types of games again and releasing those types of games? Because our people are now obviously way more inclined to be like back in that feeling zone. So they might be primed to be in the perfect place for something like that.
It'll likely mirror whatever the board game industry is going through. If board games are rising in popularity, then couch co-op are probably susceptible
Maybe,
to rise.
yeah. I've never thought about that as a trend. Look, I should. I wonder if what would it be like to pull data on that? I don't know.
Uh, yeah.
No idea. On board games, though, Batsu, the punishment card game, the one that I work on,
Yeah.
got into Meeple Monthly as of June. So, like, as of last year. We didn't, or last month. But we were
That's like
on.
that catalog, right? With that where everyone looks at. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, it's a very
Nice.
interesting thing where it's sent out to all of the people that are buyers of board games for distribution, right? So this is like a wholesaler. It's not gonna come out anyway. But yeah, we were in the August release, and we were mentioned on the front page,
Whoa,
which is
that's crazy.
yeah, and we didn't know, we had no idea, we didn't know it at all. So um, that's an interesting one. So we'll see if that fucking does anything, right? Who
Yeah,
knows? But we have no clue. So we'll see if it actually goes and does anything. But it's nice where to see things jump a little bit further and further down the line as well too. You know
yeah,
what I mean? Keep working
absolutely.
that way into hopefully into these big box stores, proper big box stores, because it's already purchasable in like different stores around the US, but it's just whomever has kind of decided to stock our stuff and buy it from these distributors themselves. So
Yeah.
thank you to those people.
The lesson learned here is to always go out there and network and show your stuff and do all the things that are very uncomfortable. Because I know you were on the road a lot doing that stuff.
Yep.
Yeah,
It is a big deal. It really is a big deal. Getting out to conventions and kind of showing off your game is genuinely is a
yeah.
huge thing.
Even if
Depends
it's
on
a,
what
if
ones,
it's a
but
video game, honestly, it just helps to talk to people about it. It just, I
yeah,
think it helps, no matter what.
I fully agree as well too. Especially when you're trying to find direction or anything else like that. Like just get feedback. Just
Yeah.
you mean we'll get onto this topic now in a second, I guess. But I
Mhm.
kind of wanted to talk about pressure and
Yeah.
feeling pressure in the games industry as well too. Like when you are on. So right now, I mean, this is just being admittance, right? But like, I left Calvin on red for about 25 minutes before we did this call, and completely just couldn't get to my phone, just couldn't get to Discord to actually like message him and say like, hey, like stuck in a meeting, and we have a big milestone coming up, really like make or break type of stuff for the game that I'm working on and the work that I specifically do on that game, which is all revolved around combat, making combat cool and trying to accomplish that goal. That's a tough goal to have when you've limited tools, limited resources, and you're really at kind of like V1 basis of what you have on your plate in terms of like what tools do you have to use, um, and people are expecting a lot out of what you have. You there's a couple of different things that go on within your own mind, um, but it can be a big stressor. Um, and I know I'm not trying to be obtuse about it at all, but where I'm coming from is pressure builds up within all the times when we're in these up and down cycles of kind of the commercial side of making games, right? If you're at a company and you know that you have 30 other people that are kind of beholden, they're building everything up to what are they going to play, right? Like what is the other people going to play? And they're going to play your feature, they're going to play your battles, they're going to play your things. And you feel like your stuff is not up to standard and up to par with where you want it to be and where you think that it's going to be, and hey, it's not fun or it's kind of buggy and blah blah blah. Like there becomes this moment of infinite pressure and infinite um that can make or break you within a moment, especially within a company setting. When you're at home and you're an independent, if it's just yourself, you might have that internalized pressure on yourself that like, hey, like this is not up to my standard, this game is not up to my standard, the where I'm at in terms of development might not be up to my standard. All of those things have these compounding cycles of doubt, but also have big moments on your confidence to be able to execute. I do feel like, and this is kind of the crossover, we'll get into it. I do feel like there's a little bit of a difference because if you are that one person sitting at home working on that game, you have influence over almost everything, right? So you can write the code to go and say, like, get myself out of this jam. What do I want to do? Go from there. But I'm very beholden to everybody else in terms of what I can do systematically. Um, Setting yourself up for success is important, but you might just have to use what you have on hand, and that might not be a lot. Um, where I'm at right now, and where I would have been a good number of years ago when I was kind of starting out, is I'd have a tendency to implode in moments like this, where I would get very on myself of like, what can I do? What can I do? What can I do to try and make this better? Everybody's looking at me. Everybody's looking at my work, and all the pressure's on me to
Wow, even
perform.
employee, you felt that way.
Absolutely. And the big reason was because I felt like I was letting the team down if I couldn't make my part feel as good as possible. Especially when you're about to go and say, like, hey, company playtest, 100 people are going to play this thing, and their whole, and you're on new game team, right? They're not looking directly at what you're working on, but they're kind of, a lot of the time, like, I mean, I'm just going to be real, but like, if you're on a legacy product that's already out in the wild and is stuck in kind of like maintenance mode, and you look at the other designers that are on the brand new product that's in a new engine doing something cool and innovative and trying to do that, there's a little bit of jealousy that can happen there as well
Mm,
too. So you
yeah,
kind of have to,
absolutely.
so you kind of have to be like to your peers, like put up or shut up. Like I can do this because you might be doing the same thing on the legacy games and performing better, or at least the bosses are performing better. But in this context, you don't have the level of tools. You don't have like a game that's been out in the wild and proven and tested with all of this like flourish of different things. You're really just trying to really work within the bounds of what you got. And I think that there's a couple of rules here for me in terms of these moments, right? One, you can't let the small things impact your psyche or your ability to execute against the bigger things, against the bigger picture. Um, what I mean by that is like there's a lot of little problems that usually tend to crop up, and you have to either be able to work around them, or two, advocate for yourself. So when you're in your sprint plannings, when you're in your sprint meetings, you have to go and say, "Hey, hands up, I need resources here." And you need to have a plan for how to go and get back to what you need to get to where you want to go. And have that idea of how do we want to execute against this, and be able to advocate for yourself and say like, look, this isn't going to be good unless I have a couple more things. And if you don't, and you just sit in your hands and you're kind of like, I don't want to talk about it and I want to avoid it, and I want to avoid that the eyes on me problem, right? Of like, hey, my stuff isn't up to standard and nobody's talking to me about it, and I just want to like sit in my little turtle shell and try to noodle with what I've got and try to make it good. Take a step back. Take a look at what you have and take a look at what would make this better, and what tools do you need to do that. Get some estimates, ping some people, just talk, you know what I mean, generally have the discussion and conversation, and then bring that up with your leads, with your higher levels, with your PMs, with your anybody in the management layer, and make sure that it's known and known early. I think this is something that I really messed up with when I was younger, and it really compounded into more things actually down the line going out poor, right? Like going out to the public as poor work, because
Yeah.
I didn't advocate for myself up front, that I had things and I took it on my back, that like I should be able to do everything with what I have, and I should be able to make fire out of just sticks, rather than saying, hey, can somebody make me a one or two tools to try and make this a little bit better. um,
So the quote goes, "Pressure makes diamonds." Do you think spending all those years under high pressure and also taking the responsibility, do you think you are a stronger designer slash developer than you would have been if you were taking it more easy? I know you said the results would have been better, but what about yourself as a person and skill set?
I do think that I am a better developer. I'm also a better project manager overall. I do feel like that it doesn't matter if it's a card game or a board game, or just a general product. You know what I mean? Like a anything, like a spatula or something like that. Or I can much more clearly and consistently estimate time against
Yeah.
what it will really take a little bit more. And my expectations have also changed completely. I think that's a big thing. Like I ex in my younger self, and I see this in my partner as well too, where like they expect so high. Like their expectations of what their performance is going to be is so astronomically high that it's not indicative. It's not
Yeah.
achievable, right? It's not
Right. Right.
achievable. And I've had to learn this over time, where it's like, don't let perfect be the enemy of good enough. And I've said it before, the Kenny Beats, like dots, like don't overthink shit, right? You kind of have to have this moment of, it's not about like I'm just building for a play test. I'm not building for the live game that's gonna come out in a year. I'm just building for right now. So what can I do to just make this right now? And
Yeah.
sometimes, as we've seen with like the payday thing and some other stuff, novelty can be a powerful pusher of entertainment.
Hmm.
So sometimes it's not just about like raw dogging like what like build something fun and that's your goal, but like you got to break the expectation a little bit, and they might be thinking it's going to be one thing, and all of a sudden you throw this other thing at them and it's more exciting and kind of like a little bit all over the place, but that gets the reaction that you want.
Right.
That,
Right.
oh, ha ha ha, like I didn't see that coming, like that type of thing can also help you in these scenarios where you just kind of throw these things at other people. Am I a better designer than back then? I think
Well,
I'm
no,
a I think I'm a
of course,
lazier designer.
of course, you're going to be a better designer, but it's like if there's an alternate reality where like you didn't take on responsibility, you had a more healthy mindset. Like I'm trying to compare those two.
I just don't know. I don't know because I've never known that side
Yeah.
of things. You know what I mean?
Right.
I've
Right.
known people that are that kind of calm and calculated
Right.
and are able to kind of take on those stressors a little bit more and not go those ways. But I think this comes into the side of like passion. One of the fucking, it's so annoying. I guess I really don't like it anymore. But like, you're trying to get into the industry as a designer, everybody's always questioning your passion, and this comes up quite a lot in interviews. It's all the
Oh, that's
time for me.
interesting.
Like,
What's like an example? Way to tease it out.
what are you passionate about? What are you passionate about in games development? why
Huh.
are why are you passionate about games development? What is your passion in in just game design, right? So like what's the aspect of the area of game design that like makes you passionate? And I've always found that as a younger developer, companies would weaponize younger developers' passion for a
Oh.
topic to drive them into stressful situations, and then
Hmm.
not help them to manage their expectations and manage their wants against those things.
Yeah.
um I think you have to be a little bit mad to try and do any of this stuff in general, because there is just so many other ways to just like make money and stuff like that. But
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
but this is a very unique way to do it. At the same time, if you care, if you really like deep down, like drill down, you care so much about your player base. You care so much about what you're trying to deliver. When it doesn't reach those high standards and expectations, that can be kind of crippling. I think
Yeah.
that can have like a big impact on the psyche of that individual person who is working on that stuff. That doesn't really let up. It doesn't get back to like, hey, like, it's okay. It's fine that it's not perfect. Like it's okay. And then, but they they might not see that. They might
Yeah.
they might just see it as like, yeah, but it didn't match, and I didn't execute, and I didn't do it right. And then the next task that comes around, their whole psyche, their whole mindset is just bunk for the next one. Because guess what? It comes back around. It doesn't stop. I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
game's not done yet. So we've just like put all of our effort into and all of our mental capacity into one problem, and then broke and failed on that problem in our own mind. Yet we may not have failed. Something else may have failed us within the process. And then all of a sudden we have to now rebuild and re-energize and do it again and keep doing that day in and day out.
Mm.
Like,
Are
yeah,
are
go
you
on.
seeing them or are you? I mean, you can say how much you want. Do you think there's been morale hits when you see these failures constantly happen?
I think that there is morale hits. Yes. I do think that the morale hits come around when we have repeat problems, or we
Mm,
try to make solves in areas and we're not able to make solves. We're not able to make the solve, the one that
yeah.
really fixes the issues. Um, right now, a lot of that for us is on server syncing. You know, you get 4 to 10 players within a battle, and all of a sudden, you know, instantly 3 people have dropped because of bad network connections. Um, the rest of the people are all kind of desyncing against each other, and then everything kind of looks a lot poorer. Like the visuals, the VFX are not syncing correctly. People are warping around the place. The boss is doing something different on your screen than it's doing it on my screen, and all of those things then compound into a problem of like, well, my boss isn't fun. My boss isn't fun, not necessarily because the boss isn't fun, it's also because of a compounding problem of all of these visual issues. And then you think about it of like our secondary goal of, hey, we want to have great social play, and we want to have a reason for players to talk to each other during the gameplay, and we want to have them to have some form of strategy that can emerge from that boss battle. But all of these different layers are not either there, right? I don't have the ability to social, so you know, I don't have social in the game, so I don't have abilities to say move here or do this or blah 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 or like attack this character. You don't, you know, and then the visuals are all desyncing, and then nobody's able to coordinate necessarily, so it just all becomes a clusterfuck where you just
Yeah.
cluster, you know, you're just everybody's just doing what they're own doing and just trying to survive.
Yeah.
So everything kind of loses out.
Yeah, and basically, because when you start a game, you set 3 to 4 pillars, and then when a bug is literally toppling all your pillars,
Yeah.
you're like, "Oh, this is really, really bad." Yeah, I've been there. I understand.
So it's difficult. I think that it's you know, I think that pressure is a weird one. Pressure and stress is a weird one within our industry, whether you're indie or not indie. I think that it's all different, but it's all kind of the same at the same time too, because it really comes down to what are our expectations of where we should be, and how we're accomplishing and how we're moving forward versus where we actually are in absolute realism, and how do we center ourselves as we are here now, how do we execute to move forward to where we want to go. We can't, you know, because there's a lot writing, you know what I mean, like this is just outside looking in, right? But there's a lot writing for you on fall ball fall, like to do well, to perform.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
That has a huge impact. In my,
It
you know what I
does.
mean, you know, on your day to day, on and all of a sudden you're like in the shower or you're cooking dinner or you're just walking around, you're talking to your partner, and all of a sudden it's just like it pings into your head like, oh
It affects.
shit,
Yeah, it affects just about everything. You're absolutely right.
and all you want to do is work on it. You're like, I
Yeah.
gotta just sit at this computer the whole time and just go and just go and just go, because like
Yeah.
everything is riding on this. I feel the same way in a commercial side of things, even though I'm just, hey, I'm getting paid to make this thing, and I'm supposed to have a 9 to 5, and I'm supposed to have all of the, you know, like all of the life balance, and everybody tells you to do all of those things. But guess what? I worked from 10 a.m. till 10:30 at night last night. I did that the night before, and we had people in huddles on Slack for hours and hours and hours, literally the entire workday, just
Oh man.
trying to find one bug, just trying to figure out like pair program, how is this working. And it's like every day that we're like, hey, we need to do a playtest because we need to look at this and we need to see where we're at. But then you get into the build, and all of a sudden you're like, well, that's broken, that's broken, that's broken, that's broken, that's broken. Oh, guess what? Company playtest is in however amount of time, and everything is riding on it. The VP
I think
layer is looking at it. The CEO is going to be looking at it. Like there's a lot of, you know, breath down necks is the kind of the thing, but it takes a mindset to be able to kind of zone out and zone back in and kind of alleviate yourself of what's real and what's not real. You know what I mean?
one positive thing that I'm hearing out of this is that at least it seems like your whole team is feeling the same amount of pressure. Is that correct?
For the most part, I think some
Yeah.
people are and some people aren't. You know,
Okay.
I do feel like that happens. where the work is kind of falling on a few individuals. But the
Mm,
people on my team, because of the company structure and because it's the new it's the this really new game that they're really trying to push, we have the most senior people. And
okay.
if there's ever something that I that really changed my mindset, my own personal mindset as well too, a long time ago, was literally that the dog inside of the bar on fire, just saying this is fine. You know,
Hmm.
like if you've seen that meme, you know,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
like that to me is just that's game development in a fucking nutshell. That's it. It's like
Yeah.
everything is on fire. The but guess what? Yeah, cool, sick. What's new? what's what's new?
Well,
What's
so like some of the experiences I have, like when I was at a studio, we had a hard deadlines that got rained on to us when things weren't looking so hot. And we didn't have a culture of that sort of responsibility. So because we were kind of a newer studio and we had resources in the beginning, so it was much more lax.
mm-hmm.
So I noticed that that sort of cult because we didn't have that culture, it was harder to spur people into soldiers and get them like really working a lot harder. So that was something. And another example is when I do game jams, very similar to what you said. The seniors, on Sunday night when things get hard, there's 6 hours to go. Like we're talking 1 a.m., 2 a.m., 3 a.m., and we got work tomorrow. The senior people stuck around because we knew it was our responsibility and we knew the we were the ones that were strong enough to do it. But yeah, people that don't feel the responsibility or purposely like kind of avoid it or can't handle the stress, they disappear. I know they're there. I know they're there, but they don't want to handle it, and it's totally understandable because, like you said, you gotta be a little psychopathic
Gotta be
to
a
want
little
to do.
mad.
Yeah,
Yeah.
to work 3 a.m. when you have a meeting in 4 hours at your real job. So
And the worst is then you do it and then you do another 30 minutes to just try and make it a little bit better.
yeah, yeah,
Like even
that's
when you
so
do
true.
solve it, you're like,
It's so true.
yeah, it's that's good. I'm at a checkpoint. That's good. But let me see if I could just do
Yeah,
just a little bit more. Just to
yeah,
absolve
yeah,
myself.
yeah. You really feel like the game is a extension of your beliefs and design philosophy. So yeah, you really feel it.
Yeah. We are putting things out into the world. Whether you want to look at it as art or design or art as design or whatever else like that, like everything that we do is an extension, that goes into a game or gets out to be playable is an extension of self. And it's an extension of our abilities and the way our thought processes are uh, and those things can hurt. They can hurt when we don't hit it, being able to kind of pick yourself off of the ground like that, it can be a big thing. We've both been through layoffs,
Mhm.
where full companies went under. And I've felt that pressure of like the entire company on my shoulders as a game designer.
Mm, right.
For better or for worse. I don't think that it was the right thing to be doing, and I've had to learn that over time that it wasn't the right thing to do because it compounded into those other issues of like, okay, shit, you know what I mean? Like stress and not being able to honestly probably execute against perfectly against everything because you're as stressed as you are. But I mean, you think about it, it's just like, yeah, like I got 100 people on my shoulders that like their healthcare, their jobs, their job security. In our industry, we've talked about it a million times of like having to move and change jobs every couple of years. Um, if we can make it one more year and get paid, and but then great. But $1 million can get burnt through real fucking fast in my side of things. Real fast. You might not have cash flow to be able to keep operating,
Mhm.
and it might just shut if you don't reach that goal, or maybe you miss 2 or 3 goals. You might not get the opportunity to get it out, and that is
Mhm.
a big in my big feels, that is a big feels. It's a big feels
Yeah,
moment.
yeah. I've literally been in the same situation where I felt like it came down to like, all right, you got to do this one last design, and depending on the metrics, we got to either shut it down or not. And it you okay, here's my take. Like, you should feel that responsibility, but you do also have to realize, like, there was a whole chain of failures that led to you being the last line of defense. So you had no control over that. And a lot of the things we're talking about applies to games too, because games, you are also put into stressful situations and you have to overcome them.
Hmm.
So like it's always on my mind because I still enter these tournaments monthly, the Street Fighter tournaments. The way people take losses is, I love observing how they take losses and then see how they perform overall as a result. You should take you should want to learn from your loss, but you shouldn't like think, "Oh man, this and this makes me a bad player and this makes me whatever." There's a whole chain of other things going on. So it's not entirely it's definitely not like entirely your fault, but yeah, like give the last line of defense a shot of
Yeah.
responsibility.
No, I like those things. I mean, that's a good shout, because it's a great way to think about it. That everything up to that point, there was a lot of different
Yeah.
compounding failures that have meant that it has really come down to the shoulders of individuals.
Yeah.
That's why we need to hire good people. That's why we need. That's why the process to get in is fairly
Mm.
stringent at times. Um, the thing I would also say to that as well too, it's like raiding in World of Warcraft or in any Final Fantasy or any of these things too. If your whole team is wiped and you're the last one alive and that boss has 5% HP left and everybody's screaming at you to fucking like stay alive and down it,
Yeah.
and it's all on you to kill that boss, they all died too, motherfuckers. Like, it's you know what I mean? If they start
Relatable.
screaming at you, then fuck all of you. You all fucking died as well too, you pieces of shit. Stay alive, motherfucker. What the
Yeah.
fuck are you doing? Fucking don't stand in fire. Fuck's sake, you know? So yes, there's a lot of problems that come up to those moments
Yeah.
where we have these clutch places.
Yeah.
I have a friend of mine who owns his own business as well too, and I think this is really great for like the self-employed people as well, like yourself, where there's this moment of exactly this, and in that world where you don't feel like you can stop because everything kind of is riding on yourself
Yeah.
to make that work, and that pressure is kind of compounding. He took a vacation there for a couple of days, I think like a week or something like that, to Tennessee to go meet his girlfriend's family, and in doing so had to put his self-employment work on hold, right? A lot of people was riding on him, and he had to tell them all like, hey, no, like, I'm going away for a week. The whole week that he was away, all he was thinking about was the money loss, the lack of economic stability, of will that job also be there when I come back? Like, have I built enough relationships with these individuals to say like, hey, no, I'm coming back, like, just give me the week, please, just give me the week. And when he did come back, that work didn't go away, it compounded. So now all of a sudden one work now becomes 2 weeks worth of work, and all he's done is shift where that workload is going to hit. So after the vacation, he came back and has to go and put in like almost like a double week just to try and catch up on time.
Yeah.
And during the vacation was not able to necessarily get it out of the back of their head. And I don't know if you have any sort of like techniques or ideas around things like that, of like, how do you, in moments where you feel like you do need to disconnect, kind of disconnect, you know what I mean? Like, how do you try to drive that into the back of your head and away from everything else?
I mean, I wish I did have a technique. I don't. When I go out to these tourneys, hanging out with friends I haven't seen like in like a decade and stuff like that, and it is awesome. Uh, I feel guilty going out to them, so I can't say that I have a healthy attitude towards it. I feel very guilty.
It's a weird one.
Just yeah,
It's very strange,
yeah.
you know.
I've often thought I should go there and have like a notebook or a book and like continue working on game dev in between matches. But I know that's a bad thing.
Yeah, no, it's like you have to afford yourself the time to disconnect, but it's very
Hmm.
difficult to do so.
Yeah.
Like I even have that, in my line of work and in the commercial side of things where and I've had this actually kind of be very negative, where the pressure of a release got to me to the point where when we shut down Dragon Veil World and sunset it, I really wasn't in a good mindset. I wasn't able to work. So I asked for a month's sabbatical, like just to get
Oh.
away, to get away from the job. Like it was 3.5 years of intensity, and then hit into peak failure when the game basically was like, we're shutting it down. And you see a lot of the love and want and everything that game could have been, and everything, all of the decisions up to that moment, and everything else compound, and all the stresses that you did go through. And I wasn't able to, just to switch off, and say, okay, cool, putting that on the shelf, let's move on to the next one. I wasn't able to do that. I really
Mhm.
wasn't, because I knew what was writing on that game as well too, and I knew what kind of came next after that. And you
Oh,
know
I see. Yeah.
um so, but in doing so, taking that month sabbatical, I came back and I was not on any game team. I wasn't put on any. I wasn't my previous job, because somebody had to go and fill in my hole that I
Oh, I
was leaving.
see. Yeah.
All of a sudden, I didn't have anything.
Man,
Uh,
that is rough.
yeah, yeah. So for a couple of months before then, everything kind of shut down. Shut down. Um, I literally just sat in a chair and watched YouTube videos and applied for other jobs. Actually, just like took interviews in the office and redid my resume in front of everybody else, because I was like, I have no job here. I've been retaliated on,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, everything that I wanted to accomplish and achieve and everything else like that has gone. So, and that's where the road ended. So it was like a weird thing where, like, even though I was not in a great mental state and the company allowed me to do those things, to take that time, in coming back, I had nothing and I didn't have a
Mhm.
job. So it was like, that's a tough position to feel like that you're in, where you're like, you put a lot of time and effort and energy into something, it backfires on you, and you're just not able to. You're not even allowed to kind of come back. Like at that point,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, um, odder situations, but there are companies that do a lot, that will kind of retaliate like that. So it's important that if you ever feel like you're in those positions where you're like, I need to take some serious time away from this, and they tell you we have unlimited PTO and blah blah blah, like, you're like, I need to take this time,
Yeah.
especially after intense times. You have to make sure that you are sorted with HR, that in on paper with your manager, it is sorted that there will be no retaliation and you will have a position when you come back. That's
Mm.
extremely important, right? Um, so yeah, I mean, it's a difficult scenario. Pressure within our industry, I think, is just it's a tough position to feel like you're in all the time. Because
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, and I suppose not necessarily to compare our positions, but yeah, when the uh, uh, to some degree, if you were to take a 2-week vacation or whatever, at least some other people would be working on your project. But yeah, for me, it's like pretty much more or less not very much progress if I take too long off. So
yeah,
that's one. Yeah, big benefit of being on a team is people can theoretically absorb a lot of the loss.
absolutely. You mean, I don't know if there's great techniques to be able to relieve pressure, right? When we feel these things. Um, for me, I think it really comes down to how you're able to handle the mindset as you go. But, that's something that I've learned over time. And that's just
Yeah.
what I'm dealing with right now. I'm just back in that, like,
Yeah.
pressure cooker situation.
Yep.
and trying to do what I can do with what I've got. And I've learned to advocate for myself now in the last like week, being moved up to like owning the scrums and stuff like that, and being our stand-up leaders. Then that gives you some better insight, because you kind of have to force yourself to have better insight across the whole team. You can also kind of drive priority a little bit as well too. So, if you need the resources that you want, you can kind of advocate for yourself in that that point and push people those ways, which is awesome. So, I mean, but I feel for other people. I feel for
Mhm.
other people. It's very difficult. I don't know. It's obviously not unique to our line of work, but I think it has a unique presence within creative fields.
Yeah, yeah. Definitely agree. Pressure, all light pressure is almost always good in my opinion.
Yeah.
But yeah, the pervasiveness of it in games industry, and also the un I don't know the right word, unreliableness of it, where it's like, hey, I just joined. There's people that just move to California and then they're like, oh, I'm sorry, this project might go under unless this happens. Like, you hear these stories all the time.
Oh yeah. I mean, shit. I remember we used to hire and fire all the time. Like,
Mm.
the last couple of years of the previous company I was at, um, we would hire people from other states, move them out, pay their relocation costs, get them there, and then all of a sudden, within like 8 to 9 months, they'd be laid off.
Mhm.
And you're
Yeah,
like, oh,
yeah,
cool, I just moved states for this. You
yeah,
know, uh, one of the questions I ask when I'm interviewing now is, what's the health of the company? And if they're a public company, right, like if they're owned by another public company, um, can somebody send me your Q results? Like, what is your revenue drivers? And tell me, are you losing money or making money
yeah.
over time? Because I need to know what the trend is of your company. Um, and I took a gamble with where I'm at right now. I definitely took a gamble. Well, we have enough leeway to try to get something out to make it work. But if we spend a lot longer than what we already have done to make a game, it's going to be a really big problem.
Yeah.
It's not.
That's a
It just won't come out. It just won't, and the company could really and truly just go away.
it's a reasonable thing to ask, especially startups. They're constantly asked what's their runway. So,
Yeah,
hey, we only have 2 years of funding. Like, it is totally reasonable to ask for that.
I think so. I think it totally is. Absolutely.
I had one thing to say if I can remember it. It was on. Never mind. I don't remember. Go ahead.
Oh, it's okay. I mean, we've talked about this a decent amount, for right now at least. It's just hard on the sleeve. It's just what I'm dealing with, so it's just right there.
Mhm.
Um,
Oh, that's what I want to say. In terms of like relieving pressure, the best. y- uh, You did say a couple things. So pressure kind of comes from responsibility, and also specifically like what is there to lose. And if you can like kind of think of things, and this is a general life lesson, not just like work or games, it's like if you realize that you actually don't have that much to lose, it helps. Like, let's say, okay, the company goes under, but you are now like, because of all the trials and tribulations you did, you're like extremely employable and you can get a job anywhere because you learned so much. That helps relieve it because you don't feel like you have this total loss.
yep.
And the other angle to that is you can also, if you are monk like I'm still working on this, if you can zone in on the present and be like, today I just need to get this and this done, that really helps a lot. And I think that is like, it's such a simple takeaway, and I'm sure everyone has heard it 100 of times. But I truly doubt that most people can do this because it takes practice. It's very hard.
Yes. Yeah. Like I didn't want to go into that side of the thing, but
Yeah,
that's how I try to form and focus up, is
yeah,
take a very Buddhist mindset of it all. Really try to center yourself within that positionality of calm, say your mantra, what do I need to do to get this done?
yeah.
And
Y- y-
don't let
Oh,
problem compound onto other problem and increase your level of anxiety within those
yeah.
things, you know?
Sorry, got more tournament stories.
No,
I
please
was
do. Yeah.
I, I
Because
was
that's a great place where mindset comes in.
yeah,
The more
yeah.
frustrated you become, the worse your decision making becomes. You're blocked
Yeah.
up. You can't execute.
I was watching two players go at it, and one player goes down 0 and 2. And then all he does is he takes out his phone. I was commentating at the time. I was like, oh, okay, True Text he's taking out his phone. I don't know what is on his phone, but he just kind of stared at it for like a minute, and then he put down his phone, and then he actually went up. He tied up the game. He still lost, but he started making this comeback. So after the tourney, I asked him. I was like, all right, what was the secret notes on your phone? And he's like, "Oh, it actually wasn't very secret. It was just my mantra to remind me of very, very basic things." So yeah, it's correct. You just need to remind yourself like what is most important right now. That's all.
Some pressure is good pressure. A lot of pressure is a downward force. We want to feel that we can put in some form of effort, and then we want to feel that our effort is justified and has a great load, right? Like has a great bearing on the positionality of the product that we're on. If we are too light, we feel kind of unresponsive and unworthy at times, right? If you're on a football team and you are only doing one little part, sometimes you can say, well, my part was important and it's important during those moments. But if it's too light and you weren't and you just sat on the bench, you might feel disconnected and disassociated from the team because you didn't really have that level of responsibility that got you to the win or got you to the other places.
Mhm.
But having too much responsibility is a big weight to bear. And only some people really end up having those things on them. And there are individuals on your team that will have those feelings. How you deal with that is a big mark of leadership and association with going through the mill. I think a few times, you know,
Yeah.
and doing it well. So, I mean, enough about that. Like, I mean, I don't know, but I mean, it's just true. It's an interesting side, different side of things when you look at it from like your side to my side and the kind of in between functions. But um, you know, but that's just where I'm at right now. You know.
Yeah. No, this is the reality. The popular game dev YouTube videos are the ones that are like, I made this game in 24 hours and I made $2,000 instantly or something. Like those are the headlines that get the clicks, but it's really not reality.
No.
And honestly, dragging they're potentially driving people. And I've seen this. I've seen this in the younger devs. They really believe in their like day one prototypes that they did without any other projects under their belt, and they feel like they can succeed. I'm like, oh man, I'm sorry, but good luck.
Yeah.
Like I know they will probably fail
Yeah.
because they buy into this.
Yeah. And how they move from there
Yeah,
is a big
yeah,
deal. You know,
exactly.
it's a really big deal. Somebody's got to be there to pick. You know, I mean, this is like kind of like fathership as well too. But like, somebody's got to be there to pick up the pieces. Well, I say fathership, parenthood, or whatever too. You see
Hmm.
your kid fall over, somebody has to be there to pick up the pieces, to try and put them back on some form of track. Otherwise, it can have very negative outcomes
Yeah,
overall. And that's, I feel like, is a big reason why people get frustrated and bang out of industries as well too. It's just like they didn't have that person to just take them aside and say, hey, like,
yeah,
let's talk about this real quick. You know,
yeah.
let's talk
Because
about it a little bit.
expectations matter. If people have very high expectations because all they do is consume these YouTube videos that say they're going to succeed if they do this, they're going to fall into a million Lego pieces, and they will either quit or they need to pray that somebody comes along and puts them together or something.
Yeah, I feel like
Whatever.
a lot of the time also too, like you don't see the hacks under the hood
Yeah.
for that shit just to
No.
make the video. You
Yeah.
know? That shit's all cut together. It's not the same at all.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You
Yeah.
don't see it. And to be fair, they look more fun than what they are sometimes. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
they definitely look more fun than what they are.
And there will be, I will say, there's literally nobody that has at least 3 years in the game industry, probably even 1 year, that will even say like, oh yeah, this is reality. Anybody who's in the industry knows it's all bullshit, like
Yeah,
within seconds. So
yeah, totally. I mean, it's difficult because a lot of those games they don't ship. You know,
mm,
they're not shippable. They're just demos that somebody has made again to like prove a concept and it put out into a video. It's not
yeah,
that that's like a bad thing. I'm not saying that that's like a bad thing, but you know, just a different level of there's a different level there that's we're not, you know, we're not trying to achieve that. That's not the
yeah,
thing that anybody's trying to achieve. Um, but you know, it's like what you do though with your experiments. Like you kind of put those things out, and then if you get a bunch of attention and people do want to play it, then you can be like, okay, let's double down on the side, and then like build that thing up into an actual
right.
shippable product, and then you can build that revenue stream and be like, hey, like, guess remember that thing? Like, it's ready to go, and we put in 6 levels and blah blah blah, and it's like it's in early access, so wishlist it now, and that's where having an audience and everything else like that really helps with all of that. But the initial getting that thing done is it's not always real. It's not
Yeah,
reality, you
yeah,
know.
yeah.
All right, Deconstructor of Fun put out an article that said must read for the year, and I haven't read it. So we'll probably read that next week.
Okay.
Read that for next week. I'm playing God of War. Um, I'm a little bit further now into it, and I'm realizing how janky AAA games are, and I don't know how a game like this has gotten to be like so critically acclaimed. I'll be honest with you. I don't understand it. I don't really get it. Feels very clunky in places, and I'm hella fucking frustrated by
Ragnarok or the one before it?
the one before it.
Okay.
I'm like some of the battles are fucking embarrassing, and the runbacks as well too when you die. Holy mackerel. My girlfriend and I were both like, every time that the little fucking kid goes and says like father, like whenever I die, and then he starts screaming at me and running at me, and I'm like, can we just cut that? You know what I mean? Can we just like turn that off? Like, because
Yeah.
I don't need to hear that 20 times every single time I try to come into a bigger battle context, and I like lose over and over and over again. It's like one time, that's good. Every other time, all you're doing is doubling down on frustration. You're not making me feel any better. You're not making me feel more tied and telling me like repeat and go back. I'm just annoyed. I'm just
Hey,
angry.
yeah.
I
Maybe
get
next episode could be a complete AAA rant video.
yeah.
I'll have Starfield under my belt. I'll give my review, my first like AAA release review ever, because I never buy them on release. So
Yeah.
we'll see.
I want to play Starfield. I want to play Payday with you, and we'll kind of just go from there. See where things go.
Excellent. Excellent.
Thanks for jumping on, bud. I appreciate
Absolutely.
you. All right.
Yep. Later.